All right, here's the heartbreaking one for today, but I think it's necessary to bring awareness to what's going on here because this is happening way too often. So this the report was taken by the New York Post, hosted by AOL.com, it looks like the articles. So Texas teen, 15, kills ex-girlfriend's mom, siblings in cowardly act of violence, says the police. An unhinged Texas teen is accused of killing his girlfriend's mother and her two younger siblings in what police describe as a targeted, cowardly act of violence. Jennifer Rodriguez, 39, was found dead inside her luxury Odessa, Texas apartment alongside her 13-year-old daughter and 9-year-old son after the unidentified teen unleashed his massacre on Tuesday evening, according to Odessa police. Officers respond to reports of shooting at the 80, shooting at the 87 Apartments, a luxury complex 350 miles west of Dallas, to discover the gruesome scene around 5:45 p.m. The suspected shooter, who was not identified because of his age, had a previous relationship with Rodriguez's 15-year-old daughter and had planned to shoot her outside of school before changing his mind and going to the apartment instead, police revealed. I'm going to shoot her outside the school. And this has happened way too many times. No one talks about this, you know. The teen girl was not physically wounded in the triple slaying. Police did not say if the girl was at home at the time of the shootings. She is okay, says police. Chief Mike Girk says she is okay. She wasn't injured. I'm sure after all this happened to her family, she's not okay. But physically, she was unharmed. And that's Odessa Police Chief Mike Girk said at the press conference on Wednesday. The 15-year-old boy ran away from the scene and was captured about 40 minutes after the shooting, police said. I wonder what was going through his mind throughout that whole entire shebang. We're going to have a conversation about this momentarily. From the time that it happened, we knew almost immediately who the suspect was, and then to locate him, he was detained within 40 minutes. Again, I don't mean to sound redundant. He has been charged with capital murder of multiple persons, a capital felony, and is being held at the Ector County Youth Center. Officials haven't released a motive for the killings. Well, I know it's hard to you don't want to speculate too much or just say facts, right? Because you don't know all the details. Obviously, that goes in general for any situation like this. But it's passion of crime or crime of passion, however you say it. And that's not to say, oh, they were married and they had no, I know they weren't married. They were teenagers. You think you're in love at that age and you treat it as if that's it. Once you lose a girl or, the girl loses a guy, it's the end of the world. And for that, some people, obviously, and it happens more often than we hear about, they go on rampages like this. Love, men and women, those two things that are supposed to bring the world together, because we're just not educated properly, especially in school, and we just, spread out so much propaganda. These situations happen, and again, we're gonna continue. So it looks like there was no gang affiliation with the. I mean, look at this kid. You know, probably just home. Like I can't imagine what was going through everyone's mind. And yeah, it sounds cliche because, oh yeah, it happens all the time, but it's just like, at what point do we stop complaining about it and actually have the conversation and really try to help with some narratives? So the heartbroken father of the children mourned the deaths of his children and ex-wife, saying that he didn't expect this kind of tragedy to happen to any of us. Of course, no one expects this, unless you're in a gang and you're taunting the wrong members of another gang, and some things are to be expected, especially when you have ties with the mafia, again, gangs, disputes, I I feel I can't imagine as a father. I can't. I have a 12-year-old little girl, bro. I can't even fucking imagine. If you want to read more, I would go to the article because it's just pissing me off just having to read this. So, to sum all of this up, obviously from what I told you, and this is coming from the sources of the New York Post or the New York Times, I'm sorry, oh, New York Post. So, these two teenagers are in a relationship. Obviously, they're not together anymore, so the boyfriend becomes obsessive. And I've been there before. I've been that obsessive kid. And a lot of the times when these happen, when things like this happen, and I'm speaking from my experience, I didn't grow up with my biological father. I had a stepfather, but it did a lot of damage to learn what happened to my real father. He was murdered along with my uncle. Well, my uncle was murdered before him. And so I had to do with, I want to assume not gang, but like family mafia related. I don't know the real truth behind everything because it was back in the 80s, I believe. And oh yeah, it was in the 80s or early 90s. And I know it's stupid to not, oh, you don't know when your father died. I don't focus on that. I hope to see him in paradise, and I'll ask questions then. But what's important to me right now is to be a part of my daughter's life, not seeking revenge for my father. But with that, growing up with that anger, that broken household, because even my stepfather and my mom, they separated when I was, 12, 11, 12 years old. I forget exactly what age. But, we came from a broken family. And because of that, I was missing that love. My mom wasn't there to love on us the way she wanted to because she was out busting her behind. And the same thing with my step pops. Like, they did everything they could to show us as much love as possible. But this is the importance of having a two-parent household to, watch your kids. You have to pay attention. And it's not just watching them and punishing them and reprimanding them. You have to teach them. You have to explain to them. I don't believe in punishment in this household unless you do something like absolutely egregious. In my household, I educate you on what you did wrong and how you can do better. And I don't expect you to make the same mistake. And we're all going to make the same mistake, but improve. That's the point. Let's make improvements when it comes to teenagers and relationships and stuff, especially coming from my background, when you find someone that you're in love with or love or like or whatever, you want that love and you don't want that love to abandon you because feeling loved is one of the most magical things on earth. And all you have to do is smile at someone and they can fall in love with you. And then you go from loving to touching, and then you hold hands and then you kiss each other. So it forms this bond that you don't want to let go. And when you lose someone that you think you love, right? Because we don't really know what being in love is at that age. We just love. And I can contest that, yeah, you can love someone, but you don't understand what that takes, Your heart you get these butterflies in your stomach and you feel like, oh, I just can never live without this person. And obviously, this is how this kid was feeling. This 15-year-old kid, I don't know how the fuck he got a gun. Like what the fuck is up with that? I'm gonna keep up with this story to see how the hell did this kid get a fucking handgun. All right. And how much ammo did he have? I mean, he just fucking slaughtered an entire family with what? One magazine? It did what kind of weapon was it? I wish they can go into more detail so we could help educate ourselves and how not to get into these situations. But I'm a proud gun owner. I have plenty, and they're all locked up. My daughter ain't getting a hold of it. And that's not to say, you see, like when I say things like that, I don't want to seem like I'm perfect because we all make mistakes. And, I don't want anything to happen, from put it. My point is to take it, do your due diligence. You have to put you have to keep your guard up. We're living in a fucking crazy world. All right. So just to rewind, just a T bit, teenagers should not be focused on relationships. All right. I understand that that's what you want and it seems cool. It seems like it's the thing to do because once you wrap yourself in a relationship because you want it, These kind of things happen. I'm not saying that everyone turns into a murderous person, but there's always some kind of fucking crazy stalking situation, domestic situation, fights between other boys or girls. Like it just gets way out of control. And this is not what we should be worried about. A lot of this has to do with parents being lenient because, oh, I'm gonna let my kid do that because if I wanted to do that and my mom didn't let me do that. You know what I'm saying? Like we have to stand our ground. Teenagers should not be in love. Teenagers should not be and yeah, it happens, okay, but it's the reason why it's happening has a lot to do with social media. You have a lot of these influencers like Cardi B and all these rappers and all these singers, including Taylor Swift. All right, always talking about relationships and how much you're pouring all these emotions to these teenagers that don't know they don't understand what these things are. They don't understand how dangerous it can get. They don't understand the trauma you could put a parent through because I had uh, I don't want to talk about my personal life, but there have been situations that I've experienced where a teenager would run away because they thought they were in love, and it caused so much trauma for so many different people, including that person that ran away. Thank God, everything worked out, but we still missed out in so much of life. There was such a huge gap in life because everything was just so traumatic over a relationship. And you think about, my life and how I grew up and my siblings. My mother's failed relationships caused a lot of trauma. And it's not her fault. I'm not blaming my mom. I'm trying to bring awareness to help people understand. This is why I'm focused on raising my daughter. I don't have any woman in my life. I've tried it and it lasted for less than a month or two. And I'm just like, I have to focus on my child. I brought her into this world. All right. I teach her all the time. I prepare myself. I tell her, I know you're gonna like boys. I know you're gonna want to hold hand. I know there's gonna be a point in your life where that might be of interest to you because it doesn't happen to everyone, but the majority of teenagers it does. And that's just speaking from experience, what I've seen. Being in a relationship as a teenager when you're in school, yeah, it's not something that we should be focused on. And I know the hormones are raging, and trust me, I know, man. I was one of those teenagers that was just like thinking I was in love most of my life. I thought I was in love. But I know if I bring someone else into the picture, it either has to work out. There shouldn't be a plan B, right? If you're getting married, like, and I'm not victim blaming at all, but in this situation, there was obviously turbulence because you have an ex-wife. That it's not okay to have an ex-wife or an ex-husband. There's a reason for that, why you get divorced and separated. When you have the one of the biggest problems in this country right now is just the broken families. Because I bet you if the father was actually there, like, married couple, teaching their children, preparing them for what's to come in life, giving them real education, how to cook, how to clean, how to take care of yourself, your hygiene. Math and reading is important, but it's not more important than the education that comes from home. This is heartbreaking, sorry. Definitely the family is in my thoughts, and I hope that this doesn't go in vain because justice to the kid or whatever, punishing him for the rest of his life, it doesn't fix the problem. We as parents can fix the problem. So I just want to say a couple of things before I get off here because I got to get back to work. We have to keep our guards up. I'm not saying that the kid got into the house easily or just opened the door or even we have to expect in this world that we're living in today. I know you don't want to. I know you don't want to think about things like that, but when you're not thinking about things like this, these situations happen. And I'm not blaming the victims at all. I do blame the parents of the kid, however he got his hands on a gun, and there had to been something there. You know what? Where is his parents? You know, he's obviously grieving over an ex-girlfriend, and he's angry. Where was the help for that kid as well? But we're past that, right? The damage is done. Punishing him and putting him in jail for the rest of his life, it's just a waste of taxpayer dollars, man. Honestly. Anyone who takes a life should face a firing squad. It doesn't fucking matter what age you are. Because once we start eliminating this cancer of Earth, because there's a lot of sick people, when they do sick things, they need to be put down. If a dog goes and bites someone's neck, he gets put down. If a bear attacks a human, it'll get put down. You're not going to punish the dog or the bear. They're not going to learn. When people are evil and they lose their fucking minds, at some point we have to stop imprisoning in them and just get rid of them. They need to be gone. We don't need to be keep wasting taxpayer dollars. We need to use a lot of that money for resources in the communities and in the parent household. We need to figure out how to keep these parents together, incentivize parents for being together, and most importantly, what we need to do is pay attention to your children as they're growing up. Now, I ain't no saint. And I'm not saying that I'm not gonna make mistakes. But the point is that I'm being aware. I'm being proactive. Don't be reactive. The damage is done. We need to be proactive towards these situations. We do need to care. This is what America is about. Standing up and actually. So now what I'm gonna do is have a talk with my daughter later and just, you keep putting the blocks together to put that wall up for her so she's defended. She's well defended when she grows up. Because if you just let it go, like, like, oh, she's just a girl, it's just a boy, it's just like, no, it's not just this and that. We have to pay attention to what's going on. And again, I'm not victim blaming. It's not their fault. It's not the little girl's fault. Bless her heart. That's it. Every time these things happen, there's an additional cancer to society. It's not just a father that's going to be hurting. It's not just a young lady that lost her family that's going to be hurting. There's so much more. There's like hundreds of people that will be affected by this. And what do you call that? If you have a situation right here, like a little skin tag, and you don't take care of it, or like a little cancer cell, whatever, or a venom, or whatever it is, right? I can't think off the top of my head right now for the proper word. But that one thing could spread, and then it spreads, and then it spreads, and then everyone's sick, everyone's unhappy, people are miserable, people want revenge. Now we got to deal with a court circus. All this taxpayer money, all these feelings, all these families that are just fucking eradicated off of this one incident, and that's one incident that one day at that one time. That's not counting the hundreds of incidents that took place like this just around the world in general, if not thousands. But to bring it to the country, all right, we need to address these issues. We're worried about so much other dumb shit right now. Everything that's on TV is Donald Trump or, Nick Fuentes or can't fuck all of that. We need to take care of our homes. We need to take care of our societies, our neighborhoods, our small economies. This is absolutely devastating.